everybody. My name's Phil Richards. I'm Jisc's Chief Innovation Officer. Myself and Andy are joining you from our London office. Hannah and Sarah from our Bristol office, and Sue, I think, is doing an outside broadcast from her home in Bristol. And it's interesting to see a nice varied set of locations starting to pop up on the chat on the right there. So this is our quarterly update on work in the R&D space in Jisc, which is meant to be hopefully of interest to you and for your benefit. This is the third one of these we've done. The last one was the 12th of February. The first one was back in the autumn. And again, we're really keen to get suggestions for topics for future occasions, but also any observations on the format and things we can try differently. We're always happy to switch things around and try and experiment. So if I could just, for a couple of minutes, pick out a few highlights, just highlights since our last learning call on the 12th of February. First of all, our DigiFest annual conference, which was focused on teaching, learning and student experience back in March. We got a bumper turnout, about 400 more delegates than in the previous year, and we received some excellent feedback. So maybe some of the people on the call were there. I hope you enjoyed it. During DigiFest, we launched our Horizons report, our first Jisc Horizons report, where we looked at and gave an overview of emerging technologies in education, and a particular focus on the mental health situation, the mental health crisis, as many commentators call it, in our universities and colleges. So that report, it remains available via our website. We had a lot of feedback. It stimulated some interesting discussion, both in the UK and internationally. On a national stage, then during April, the government launched its national EdTech strategy, which spanned schools, colleges, and universities. So it's nice to see that holistic view being taken. And it was also nice to see Jisc getting a number of mentions. On the one hand, for providing the connectivity for universities, colleges, and actually backhaul for around half of the UK schools as well, which not a lot of people know, but also in other areas such as supporting new edtech companies and endeavours, and also in areas such as digital skills and digital capabilities. So we got quite a lot of mentions across a wide spread of areas. So that's kind of fed into our agenda today. So in a minute, I'm going to hand over to Sue, who's going to talk about the StepUp scheme, which was launched yesterday by the university's Minister Chris Skidmore. It was Sue did an excellent job leading the organisation of the event. We took a Las Vegas cabaret style event up to Woburn House, which is the somewhat sort of sober surroundings of the headquarters of Universities UK. So it was quite a bright new format of event, and I'm pleased to say that it was very well received and it went down extremely well. So Sue will be telling you about that in a minute, and then handing on to Sarah, who'll be talking about our digital capability service, which continues to evolve as it transitions to service. We now have over 30 universities and colleges signed up. I'm sure Sarah will give you the latest numbers, and they're growing fast. And we'll also be demonstrating. We'll keep our fingers crossed. It's always a slightly nerve-wracking experience to try and demonstrate to a large number of people over the wire, but I'm sure it'll all be all right on the night, Sarah. So Sarah will be demonstrating some new functionality aimed at information professionals. So hopefully that will be relevant, looking at a number of the job titles popping up on the side there. So I hope you enjoy the call, enjoy the sessions, ask questions, and also, as I say, we're really interested in feedback for how we run these in future, because they're your events, your opportunity to find out and get involved in what's going on. So, Sue, at that point, I shall hand over to you, and you can tell us all about StepUp. So I think you might be on mute. If you just... There you go.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Sue Atwell. I'm Head of Change within the Research Department of Jisc, and I've been working on our EdTech startup program, particularly looking at what we can do to expand our activity in this area. And we've moved on to StepUp, which launched yesterday. So just firstly, what do we mean by EdTech? Well, we're looking at EdTech that covers all aspects of the student journey. So publishing, learning management systems, student wellbeing, and everything like that. And to start with, if we just take a view of the EdTech is estimated to grow to 128 billion by 2020, taking on future trends such as the world's aging population, shortage of qualified teachers, and transformational technologies. And the view of who's who of EdTech, so particularly looking at things like how what we're doing can support things like the GFE strategy that Phil mentioned earlier. So the GFE strategy particularly picked on aspects such as supporting a world-leading EdTech business sector, working closely with EdTech businesses and key sector organisations to understand how we can help businesses to grow and ensure they're meeting the needs of the education sector. And to help us do this, we're working with Emerge Education, who run Europe's largest EdTech-focused investment accelerator. So that just helps us make connections and identify relevant startups that are meeting our member needs. Thought I'd start by highlighting 3 interesting startups that we're working with. So Bibliotech are basically a Spotify for textbooks, allowing students to access resources in handy ways and also widening access, so preventing students from suffering from that, not being able to buy full-size textbooks for the whole of their course, and making things much more accessible on the move so they can access things on their phone. Uni2 have developed a student feedback loop, which is in 12 universities at the moment and has really impacted on student satisfaction scores because that feedback loop is more immediate and they're working in real time. Backbillion has developed a whole series of resources that really help students to gain financial literacy, manage their budgets, and suffer far fewer financial problems whilst they're studying. So why should we get involved in startups? What's the reason for us working with them? Well, I think one of the key ones really is to help us meet our vision. If we're wanting the UK to be the most digitally advanced and also to be at the forefront of international practice, in part that's going to be delivered by greater use of EdTech, and that also fits with our Education 4.0 vision. On a practical level, it's about us influencing startups and ensuring that they meet member needs and build influence across the sector. Key reason for StepUp is around de-risking that collaboration between institution and startups and making it much easier for our members to deploy startups. And culturally, there's a lot to learn. This is a two-way learning process. It's about improving sector knowledge and also improving the way we work as well. Interestingly, this activity all started in 2015 with our Summit of Student Innovation. And potentially one of the startups that's just gone through StepUp were actually in that first cohort. Uni2, who I just mentioned, they were on our Student Ideas programme in 2016. So it's been really nice to watch how some things have progressed from a student idea through a startup competition and now to a growing business. People like Maker Club were on the programme in 2017. Hubbub and Hour also came through in 2018. So a real progression from the ideas and startups. 2019 at DigiFest, we ran the shortlisting from our last cohort and identified the 5 people we're going to be working with. So My Future is a careers app for young people. Scholarly is a long form summariser, so it creates a flashcard from any document giving you the key facts. 30 is virtual and augmented reality training for medics, and Campus Connect connects outgoing students with incoming students and ambassadors in your institution before they actually join. It helps make that transition easier. And Connect to Teach brings students and industry experts, those with previous teaching experience, together, just bringing that real-time view into the learning experience. We ran Startup. Startup is running for the last time this year. Next year, we will replace it with bursaries for our StepUp programme. One of the key reasons for introducing the StepUp was that the startup competition, whilst good and a real value add for us, limit us very much to working with 5 to 6 startups per year, and we're looking forward to working with many more in the future. So StepUp. StepUp is a health check programme, and it does 4 things really. It gets startups ready to answer the questions you're going to ask them as part of that engagement process, and allows them to be procurement ready. It's not intended to replace procurement, but it is intended to enable startups to be able to almost survive the procurement process and ensure that they're competing and able to compete. It helps you filter the startups you want to engage with and spend your time with. You can identify relevant startups that are solving your business problems and know that they've had a level of due diligence and engage with them. If there's a startup that you're keen to work with and that you've identified, it can help you answer the questions that your IT department are going to ask you if you try to work with them. And finally, and we started this yesterday for the first time, we're going to run a few events which are bringing institutions and StepUp assess startups together in a no pressure, no sales context to start building those relationships and hopefully enable more collaboration in the future. The process we go through in order to do that assessment is we set evaluation criteria, and we worked with a large number of institutions, both on face-to-face visits and through the GFE board, which is a governance board that we have set up for this programme, which has 38 members across the sector. And we worked with startups as well, getting that consultation both ways. Initially, companies self-assess, and we then have a programme of activities that will help companies move from that initial self-assessment to be assessed by. So they can access a series of webinars, workshops, activity like that in order to make sure they're where they need to be and have all the solutions to pass the assess by criteria. And the assessment is then evaluated by an expert panel. Assessment is done at 2 levels. So the first is solutions that are ready for pilot or staged rollout. And the second level is for solutions that we've assessed as ready for full-scale implementation. So they have the team in order to support those scaled rollouts across multiple institutions. At the top of the slide now, you'll see our badge, and if you note, it has the year down the side, and that's quite crucial, really. We are assessing companies and awarding them with the badge, and if they remain on programme, i.e. continue to attend workshops and grow their abilities, that badge will be renewed whilst they're on programme, so that people and their assessment will be reviewed annually, so that people can tell that that assessment is current. If they go off programme and don't resubmit on an annual basis, then you'll be able to tell that that assessment is quite out of date. and there will obviously be a full list of companies on our website. At the moment, we've assessed 9 companies as part of our pilot programme. So Bibliotech, Uni2 and Black Bullion that I mentioned earlier in the call. Also things like companies like PeerGrade, which is a peer assessment tool, Volo, which is around identifying, increasing volunteering, but also identifying the skills gained through that. Hour, which is an alternative communication-based VLE system. Handshake, which is a solution designed to bring graduates and employability options, careers options closer together and much easier to access. And Potentially, which is an employability tool, which is identifying the skills gained through that. And Open Campus, which is a full university support system aimed at making all systems and processes paperless. So that's our first 9. And I think finally, this is my last slide. So during the process of consultation with both startups and senior leaders, we identified a lot of key areas. So we produced a guide which is about working for startups. And within that guide, there are a series of questions, because one of the things we're trying to promote, even if people don't wish to engage with the StepUp, is that there are a set of questions that you should ask and answers that you should look out for in working with startups to make sure that you are not entering into a risky relationship, and to just, even at that basic level, de-risk that engagement and ensure that you're engaging with somebody that will still be there, hopefully the year after. On our new StepUp page, there is a register for updates, so you can register and get updates of which companies are going through and which have been assessed. Or if you're a startup program, you can register to take part in future cohorts. And obviously we have a blog which keeps people up to date with what's happening. And that's EdTech StepUp.
Thank you, Sue.
I'm now going to hand over to Sarah, my colleague, who'll talk about digital capabilities.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today, and I'm really delighted to be able to share with you some updates around our digital capability work. I'm going to share my slides with you, and I'm also going to be live demoing the discovery tool, as Phil mentioned earlier. So just to start off, I'd like to just give you a very brief overview around the work we've been doing around digital capability. Sarah and I had a change of student experience, and working with my team on this area, going back really to 2008 for some of our original research. So I'm hoping that this slide is probably self-explanatory, but I think it is useful to just to put forward some of the key drivers for why digital capability is so important for institutions, particularly in relation to upskilling staff and our students and preparing them for the digital world. We know from the various reports that are out there that there is a skills gap, and some of the expectations of employers in the workplace are not necessarily matching those of our graduates that are coming through from college or from university. We know that digital skills is going to be vital for 90% of all jobs in the next decade. Automation, AI and technology are transforming the workplaces, and with so many references in the news and literature to the fourth industrial revolution, we know that digital skills as a fourth digital literacy is no longer an option not to engage. We also know through work from the World Economic Forum, who identify a skills gap among workers and organisational leaders as having the potential to significantly hamper new technology adoption and therefore business growth. So to be employable in the modern world, we really need to develop our students as digitally capable lifelong learners, and we need to go further in developing digital entrepreneurs. And we have some lovely examples there that Sue was just sharing from some of the EdTech startups that can really help us shape the future of their employment. So are educational organisations preparing students for this changing world? Well, it's interesting to see Phil referenced the new strategy that GFE published in April. And within that strategy, I think we're delighted to see the recognition around the importance of ensuring people have the right capabilities and skills. And the strategy does state a commitment to supporting this agenda. So we very much hope that at government level, that agenda is being taken forward. And obviously as Jisc, we're working very closely with them on that through various different initiatives. But what are our students saying? And here I've just shared some of the key stats from our 2018 Digital Experience Insights Student Survey, where we are still having some, I think, some concerning feedback from our students. And although 50% of FE students and 69% of HE students thought digital skills were important for their chosen career, we are saying that only 41% of them felt that their course really prepared them for the digital workplace. So we know that there is a challenge there, and we really need to make sure that we are preparing our staff in order to be able to instill that digital confidence in our students, and ensuring that students are very much part of the discussions around co-developing the digital environment. We are working closely with a large number of organisations, and Phil mentioned the Digital Capability Service, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But I think what we are starting to see is a recognition that digital capability is an important agenda for institutions, and that is coming through at a senior level. We have a quote there from our Pro-Vice Chancellor from the University of Derby. And I think it's really important that we are ensuring that our senior leaders are aware of the importance of supporting the development of digital capabilities within their organisations in order to develop graduates that are fully going to meet the demands and requirements of the workplace. So how are we doing that? How are we working with institutions to develop digital capability for their staff and students? Well, we started this work back in 2008, and some of you may remember some of the early work we did around some of the funded projects and programs with the leader and some of our digital literacy work. And this led to the development of our digital capability framework. We have our 6 elements of digital capability that are represented in that diagram. And within there, we see that we are presenting a holistic view of what it means to be digitally capable and to live, learn and work in a digital society. We recognise that not all of those digital capabilities are going to be relevant to every role for staff, but we do need an awareness of what it means to be able to be data literate, media literate, to be able to look at how we can problem solve and how we can ensure that we are ensuring our students have those relevant capabilities in relation to the discipline areas that they are studying. It's important to think that this framework encompasses high-level capabilities, particularly around digital identity and well-being. We know that that is such an important agenda and one where there is a lot more work needed to enable our staff and our students to be able to have that sense of well-being and to be able to manage their identity online. The 4 core central digital practices focus on communication and collaboration, teaching and learning, digital creation and problem solving, and information and data media literacies. And then in the centre, we've got our functional ICT skills, which fall out of those higher level discussions above. We have been working closely with large companies like Microsoft, Google, LinkedIn Learning, and Apple to ensure that we can map their resources onto the framework as a way of aligning development opportunities with this model. But how do we take that down a level and contextualize that back down to the professional roles? Well, we have developed a series of lenses, which we refer to as our role profiles. We have 9 of those role profiles now. They've all been recently updated, and they're all available from our Digital Capability Service site, of which I'll pop the link in the chat window shortly. But these are really important in terms of then taking that high-level framework and looking at those various different digital capabilities and elements and mapping that down to individual roles. So importantly, we have worked with professional organisations to develop these role profiles, working closely. For example, for the library and information professional profile updates, we've worked very closely with StepUp and had consultation with a staff working in library and learning resources area to ensure that those are relevant and mapping to the skills that staff need working in those areas. We've recently updated our research, well, we have now a new research manager, research professional profile that sits alongside our new updated researchers profile as well. And those are all available to download from our website. A little bit more detail on the library and information professional role profile, and this was mapped to the professional knowledge and skills base in collaboration with StepUp, and again draws on the key areas that library and information professionals will require in their roles. So these are very much tools to encourage discussion and collaboration with staff, and to start thinking about contextualising this to their day-to-day roles, and to encourage that discussion. Equally important, we have developed a role profile for learners. So again, looking at ensuring that our students have an awareness of the types of skills that they will be requiring when through their course of study. So our Digital Capability Service very much incorporates the advice and guidance that we've been developing, the underpinning research that has informed this work, but has also elements including the discovery tool, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment, as a first step to engaging staff and students around their digital capabilities. Within there as well, we have a wealth of guidance. We have links through to organisational models and audit tools and ways in which we can start engaging a holistic approach to developing organisational digital capability. We're working with nearly 38 colleges and universities across the UK and internationally on the service, and through our community of practice we're able to draw together the lessons learned and encourage that collaboration. And that's really important in terms of working through some of the challenges that institutions are facing in this area, as well as sharing what works well. Now, at the heart of the service, we have our discovery tool, and I am going to go do a live demo of the tool. So I will just stop sharing that for a moment and just share my screen, where we'll be able to go into live into the tool. So just bear with me 2 seconds and we will be able to go into there. So our discovery tool sits at the heart of the service and really is that first step for engaging students and staff with the discussions around what they feel confident in relation to their digital capabilities and skills. It's very much a reflective tool. It's very much to encourage staff and students to assess where they feel confident, and also draw areas where they may wish to develop their skills further. So we have a standard dashboard that users will see on logging in, and if we go to our question bank, we're able to view the question sets that we have been developing. So these question sets start with an overall digital capability question set, which takes around about 15 to 20 minutes to answer for staff. And then depending on your role, you're able to get a more specific question set designed to align closer with your role. So I'm going to select the working in library and learning resources for today, just because I know we have a number of delegates who have that background on the webinar today. So this is allowing us to go into a set of questions which we are then able to answer and reflect on. And at the end of the sort of set of questions, we will then be able to access our report in terms of seeing where our areas of strengths are and where our areas of possible development are. So we can reflect on the answers to these questions individually and work through the question set accordingly. I'll just do the first three just to give you a sense of how that question is put together, and move on to the confidence question. And I'll put that there. So these questions were designed in collaboration with an expert panel. So we were really delighted to have engagement from Sconnell, from CILIP, from Colrec, from RL UK, as well as representatives from colleges and universities who were able to work with us on the design of these questions. The questions are all related back to our digital capability framework, and in particular the Library and Information Professional profile that I was mentioning earlier, and are able to then align with I think I haven't got a report there because I've just taken that. You would see your digital capability report there, and apologies because I just retook that test. It's just overwritten that report. But institutions or individuals would be able to see their individual report and to be able to get a view. And I will show you a report when I go back into my presentation. In addition, you are able to access a wealth of resources in our resource bank. And if we scroll down to the resource bank for library and learning resources, we're able to go into a curated set of resources there that have been reviewed and mapped to the areas of the professional profile, and also linking back in to the question set. All these resources are openly and freely available. They have been reviewed and curated and give a short sort of overview of each resource, as well as linking through to a suggested reflection activity. So there is opportunities there to go directly to the resources, but equally from the individual reports, staff would be able to go in and access those resources depending on their levels of proficiency through the questions that they have answered. So that gives you a very brief overview of the Discovery tool. I'm going to stop sharing that for a moment and go back to my presentation, just so that I can share with you a little bit more detail about the other features of the tool. So as I was saying, in terms of the library and learning resources question set, we identified and agreed sort of high-level areas of practice, and then developed some key activities for each area, developed questions for each, and the feedback, and also identified appropriate resources. There was a challenge, I think, identifying that there were some differences between further and higher education that we were looking to grapple with in some of that question set development, and also I think recognising the diversity in roles of libraries and a range of levels of specialism. But we do feel that the current question set is certainly getting some good feedback from those users that are working through it. Now, I've spoken about the individual view, but equally for an organisation that are subscribed to our service, you would also be able to get some institutional data dashboards and some visualisations back relating back to how your individual staff or students are completing those question sets. All the data is anonymous, so there is that sense that students and staff can answer those questions honestly and be able to get that supportive feedback back through that process. But equally for institutions, they are able to see that visualizations and aggregate that data by department, by digital capability area, and also if we're talking about roles as well, looking at the different roles. So that is a really powerful tool in terms of supporting the next steps on. You can see that the areas in green are the areas for development. The purple bars are showing that staff are more proficient in that area. So some really important data that staff can then use to help further develop staff and identify areas of development. We have also recently launched our digital badges, and staff and students that go through the question sets are able to apply for a digital badge through our Credly platform. And that's also working to be an incentive for the completion of those question sets for both staff and students. I think just this month we've already had about 71 digital badges that we've issued. Up until the end of April, we had around 2,500 staff that have been through and completed the question sets, and nearly 2,000 students as well. So it's good to see those levels of engagement that we're having around the tool. Just lastly, a few updates in terms of what's next. We are continually updating our case studies. We've published one from the University of Westminster this week, showing how the digital capability service and the discovery tool is leading to digital transformation within their university. And some very interesting stories to share in terms of how the universities are taking forward the development of those strategies at institutional level. Coming up soon, we recognise that there is, of course, accessibility and inclusion is very high up on all college and universities' agenda at the moment, with the new legislation coming in, and very important that staff are able to know how to develop their practice, their digital practice, accessibly and inclusively. So we are working again with an expert review panel to develop a new question set focused on accessibility for staff, and that will be available within the service from September. Equally, we know that digital wellbeing is an area of concern for our members, and we're currently doing a review of that practice that's currently existing within colleges and universities, and where the gaps are and what areas Jisc might be able to support institutions on in terms of further development. The reports from that review is likely to come out at the end of June, beginning of July. I've mentioned that we're working closely with Microsoft, Google and LinkedIn, and ensuring that their materials are mapped to our framework and also to be able to be surfaced through the discovery tool. We've also worked very closely with the Education and Training Foundation to ensure that their new learning materials linked through to their new digital skills competency framework are also surfaced through the discovery tool. If you haven't come across IDEA, I hope that this will prompt you to. IDEA is the Duke of York Digital Award, and is an amazing set of free resources for anyone to use to support students and staff becoming digital citizens and digital entrepreneurs. So we are working with IDEA again to surface their resources through our discovery tool, but also to develop an IDEA badge for completion of the discovery tool questions, so you'd be able to get points towards your IDEA badge. And finally, working on developing an organisational maturity level in relation to organisational digital capability, drawing on some of our underpinning research from working with our organisations. So if we said, what are the key success factors for organisational digital capability? Those, I think, are certainly some of the key factors that we have drawn out from our synthesis to date. We know that we need a common vocabulary and around our framework, which is used across the UK and sort of internationally, and that's sort of supported by the evidence coming out of the about to be launched utilising Digital Capability Survey report, which is due to be launched in 2 weeks' time. We know that strategic support is vital. We have to ensure our HR departments are on board, because obviously this needs to be linked into recruitment, appraisal. We know that we need to reward and recognise our staff and students for developing their digital capabilities, and importantly as well, we need to map it back into the curriculum in order for those students to develop those skills, and working in partnership with our staff and students is essential with that. And our end goal, if we're thinking about where I started in terms of ensuring our students are successful graduates and moving into the workplace with the required skills, it's not necessarily knowing how to use the latest software package. It's about ensuring our students can be adaptable, resilient, curious, creative and confident in order to be able to work in partnership with those in the workplace to really ensure that they are meeting their goals. So I hope that was useful, and I will stop there and hand back to see if we have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Sue, for your talks. We haven't had any questions posted about either of those conversations yet. Feel free to post them into the Q&A box or straight into the chat, that's fine. While people are thinking up questions and getting ready, we're also happy to take questions on, as well as those two presentations, any of our progress on our research and development work. We did send in the joining instructions a progress report which summarises all that we get up to in R&D, all that we've been up to in R&D since last February. I will just paste a link to that in this into the chat down there, so that if anyone didn't spot it in the joining instructions, you can access the report there. Happy to take questions on anything you've heard today or anything in that report, or really anything related to Jisc that you feel like asking. So we'll just give you a few minutes in case anyone does want to ask any questions. Okay, Sarah, there's a question just come into the chat there from David. We'd like to know more information about the subscription price for the discovery tool. Are you able to answer that?
Subscription prices for the service are banded by institutional size. So if you're able to drop me an email after the webinar, we can definitely follow that up with you and get you a cost out to you.
Sarah, there's a similar question from Natalie in the Q&A box. Natalie asks, is it free to subscribe to the digital capability package? She's had that answer, so now follow-up question from Natalie. Is it possible to try it before subscribing? Because I think you answered part of that question in David. So it may be worthwhile going through what's available for free from the site and what's under subscription.
Yeah, definitely. I think what we're able to offer for those that want a taster is the access to the taster version of the discovery tool. So I will put a link again in the chat window in a moment just to do that. So I'm multitasking here, it's not working very well. Yes, so the free or taster version will give you access to the digital capability question set for all staff, and that will give you a feel of the questions, it will give you a feel of the tool, and it will give you a cut-down version of the report. If anyone is interested in having access to the version I was showing you in terms of looking at considering it for your institution, again, please get in touch with us. We'll be able to set you up with a trial login so you're able to actually see those questions and have that detail. In terms of the role profiles, the framework, all the underpinning guidance and advice and guidance that's there at the moment, that's available from our Insights service site, and I can share a link to those specific pages as well. So I hope that that answers a little bit more, goes into a bit more detail about that, and I'll put the links back in the chat window.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for answering that, and Natalie's just said thanks there in the questions for it, which is great as well. So if you just post those links into the chat, they'll be there for everyone to look at. Doesn't look like there's any further questions coming in at the moment. So just to let you know, as Phil said in the introduction, this is a quarterly webinar from us. So the next one is due to take place on the 17th of September, 12 to 1. So if you're interested in attending one of these in the future, that's the next date. We'll share a progress report, and we'll follow the same format always of 2 updates on specific pieces of work and a general progress update. We haven't decided those topics for September yet. In the world of R&D, September's a long time away, but it'll be something that's relevant and interesting at that time. It's likely to be something to do with mental health, we suspect, on that one, but we're not sure yet. Okay. Doesn't appear like we've got any other questions or anything else, so I'd just like to say thank you. Just invite you again, like Phil did at the start, to give us any feedback either in the chat now or via contact us via the website on this webinar and ways it can be improved. We've done it a few times. It's meant to be something that helps Jisc members keep informed on what we're up to with our research and development work, so any suggestions you've got we'd be very grateful for, so please let us know. But other than that, thanks to all the speakers and thanks to all of you for sparing your lunch break to attend this webinar. I hope it was useful.
Yep, thanks everyone.